There is no denying the beauty and charm of San Miguel de Allende. This city in Mexico's Central Highlands has been recognized as one of the top places in a number of surveys and rankings. Just within the past few years, Travel and Leisure named this the world's best city, and the readers of Condé Nast Traveler voted it top small city in the world. In the next several minutes, I'll show you some of the spots I visited during a 2-day stay. Hang on until the end when I give you my assessment of what has become one of the top destinations anywhere for expats, many of whom have relocated from the United States. For now, here's my look at San Miguel de Allende. The beginning of my time in the city did not go exactly as planned. As soon as I got off the bus, I headed up the hill to El Charco del Ingenio. It is a botanical garden and nature preserve. It showcases a variety of cacti and other succulents, many of which are endangered. This looks like a really cool spot, but when I showed up with my camera, the person at the desk said that capturing video for YouTube was not permitted. That meant that a walk of more than 2 kilometers to this arid attraction on top of the hill yielded very little. I got some shots of the entrance and the landscape in which the botanical garden exists, but didn't get inside the gate. From what I could tell, the flora inside was very similar to what was outside, but I have no way of knowing for certain. That was disappointing, but that's how it goes sometimes. One note, if you're coming up here, I walked from downtown, but consider your fitness level before you tackle that. It is a lot uphill, very steep in some spots, and at 6,000 feet, the air is very thin. Most of the rest of my visit went much better in terms of access and getting what I intended. Most, but not all. The most recognizable feature in the center of the city is the Parroquia de San Miguel Archangel. It is a magnificent structure. Made of pink limestone, this is the parish church. Written descriptions are eager to point out that it is not a cathedral. The architecture is reminiscent of churches in Europe, and specifically relates to the Spanish colonial period of this part of Mexico. I have heard it said that the layers of detailed carvings and arches that are included in the design conjure thoughts of the appearance of a wedding cake. A religious building has occupied this space since the 16th century, when Franciscan friars established a humble chapel. Construction of what is seen today began in the 17th century, and the pink facade was added in the late 1800s. The parroquia goes a long way in giving San Miguel de Allende its identity, and is where most people begin their exploration of the city. Right next to the famous structure is the Iglesia de San Rafael. It was built in the 18th century and is so close to the parroquia that many assume it is all the same structure. There are well over a dozen churches in the heart of the city, each of them adding incredible visual appeal to the area. This is the Church of the Immaculate Conception. Construction began here in 1755 and continued well into the 19th century. Its dome finally topped out the structure in 1891. The yellow building was part of a large housing complex that served as a convent. Locals have given this the nickname of Los Monjas, or the nuns. Today, the location continues to provide shelter for the nuns of the Order of the Immaculate Conception Church. Just a short walk away is the Templo de San Francisco de Asís. The carvings surrounding its front door are quite impressive. Those are often used as a backdrop for wedding photos. This church started to take shape in 1778, but it was 20 years before it was completed. As with most of the other places like this in the city, if the doors are open, you are welcome to step inside and take a look at no charge. There's quite an unusual entrance to the Church of Our Lady of Health. Concave with a giant seashell sculpture over top of the doorway, this is quite attractive and memorable. There's a lot going on at the front, and some say this is the only church in San Miguel that has elements reflective of indigenous people. The structure is on one of the most popular squares in the city. This is known as the Plaza de Soledad, or Civic Plaza. It is a pleasant little patch of green. The statue is of Ignacio Allende, a hero of the war for Mexican independence in which he was killed. He was born here in what at the time was called San Miguel el Grande, and the city later took on his name. The most famous square in the city is Jardín Allende, which is adjacent to the Parroquia. This has a reputation of being the meeting place and a center of activity for the city. I actually thought it would be a bigger space, but what it lacks in size is offset by its beauty and by how much it is utilized by both visitors and residents. This place does draw a crowd, and it seems as though the later in the afternoon it gets, the more people come out to enjoy the space. The park is characterized by wrought iron benches, a central gazebo, and constant activity. This is prime territory for people watching, and there's usually some sort of music being played in the space. It is oriented to provide a view of the Parroquia. There are shops, restaurants, and other places to buy treats to the sides of Jardín Allende. A much bigger green space in the city sits a bit away from the center. This is Parque Juárez. It was dedicated in 1904 after a doctor spent years buying up land that he could turn into a park. He wanted to create a space for recreation that existed as the lungs of the city. I would say that his goal has been achieved. If you ever find yourself in San Miguel de Allende, this might be where you want to come early in the morning. Seems like a lot of people in this city start their day right here. There are trails around the perimeter of the park, as well as others which crisscross the property. The morning that I visited, scores of people were walking, running, and giving their dogs some exercise. It seemed quite early in the day for a basketball game, but I suppose you take the opportunity whenever it presents itself. You cannot go wrong in San Miguel de Allende simply choosing a street and walking along to see what you can find. The city is full of picturesque avenues, most of which are narrow and lined with colorful homes and businesses. I liked how one person described the reds, golds, and pinks as a palette that rose straight from the earth. You will marvel at the views with every turn that you make on the maze of streets. Many of the streets in the downtown district are covered in cobblestone. To me at least, these look like the original surfaces that were put in place during the formation of the city. That could be inaccurate, but I would not be surprised if some of these stones have been here from the beginning. In the very heart of San Miguel, there are a number of blocks set aside for pedestrian traffic only. It's always nice to be able to wander through the main part of town without having to be confined to the sidewalks and keeping an eye on vehicles. I enjoyed the Guadalupe neighborhood that is nestled in an area a little less than a kilometer from the center of the city. This is the place to go for those who are taken by street art. Many artists have found this neighborhood that was once considered a dodgy part of town to be the perfect place for them to live and create. The images on the walls certainly reflect the artistic flavor of the barrio. The images are vibrant and energetic. They build a space that is full of life. Walking through the neighborhood, each street produces new discoveries and visual sensations. There is way more than I have time to show here, so take a few moments if you are ever in the city to break away from the main tourist area. Walking the city, it is impossible to miss the historic fountains that are situated in various locations. These are a staple of many towns in this part of the country. Some still have water flowing, while others, long ago, ran dry. I read that there are over 30 of these features scattered through San Miguel, just waiting to be found. There is little doubt that this city is a haven for artists. Part of that can be attributed to the Institute Allende School of Art. It is possible to wander into the space where students are still being guided on their quest to become talented creators. It is a medium-sized campus with plenty of visuals that are indicative of its purpose. Students can earn bachelor's and master's degrees, and there's a lifelong learning component as well. You have seen what this city is today. Much of the credit for that goes to this institute and one of its founders, an American named Sterling Dickinson. Dickinson was charged with promoting this school, and he was very successful in doing so. Many Americans were lured here at the end of World War II as they could use the GI Bill to attend. They found a different culture and a lower cost of living compared to what was back home. In a way, the Institute played a part in making San Miguel a home for the arts and also gave it a push toward becoming the expat center it is today. Fantastic artistry is present throughout this city. One such site is Fabrica La Aurora. This is a spot for artists, their galleries, and the public, which has an appreciation for such. Most of the pieces appear to me to be rather high-end, and the works are not only interesting and attractive, but they are all presented in an aesthetically pleasing way too.
This is a sprawling complex. There are no fewer than 50 artists and galleries in here, plus there are coffee shops, restaurants, and other places for people to enjoy.
For nearly 100 years, this complex was a textile factory. Now it has been transformed to accommodate an entirely different industry. It's an example of adaptive reuse, serving as a way to link the old and the new. The setting is different, but the result is the same at the Mercado de Artesanías. Here, you can find a variety of beautiful, handcrafted items, typically created by the folks you meet in the market. Even without any intention of making a purchase, this is a fascinating place to roam. There's everything from silver goods to clothing to hand-painted souvenirs. The Mercado seems to go on forever. A couple of times I thought that I was at the end, only for a new segment of the market to be revealed in front of me. That Mercado is very near the Ignacio Ramirez Market. This is that place in town where people come to find fresh produce at great prices. The different colors of the fruits and vegetables combine for an astounding array that continues aisle after aisle. It's not just produce here either. There's also an assortment of textiles and other items for sale. Likewise, cooks fold together simple ingredients to create spectacular plates of food. And fruit is crushed to make the freshest juice that can be found anywhere. For a phenomenal view of the city, climb up the hill to the southeast of the center. This is El Mirador, and for those who have already spent some time in San Miguel, gives an overview and puts into context the ground that has been covered. Descend just a bit, and there is an area known as the Lavaderos del Chorro. This is a series of basins to which people of the town at one time brought their laundry. They were able to make everything clean again using spring water that flowed into the basins. It would have been thrilling to see this place when it was in full use, at least for me. Probably not as thrilling for those actually doing the laundry. There is a link between the spring and this building. It's the Casa de la Cultura. It was created as a place to store water for the population of the town. Now, though, it is a place of artistic teaching. Students can learn everything from musical instruments to dance to painting. It is rare that a video dedicated to travel will feature a library. Every city has a public library, but few of them look like this. It begins with a breathtaking courtyard and continues from there. For instance, this is the bookshop. The bright orange murals covering the walls and the ceiling make it feel as though you are being embraced by the art. The whole complex is a treat to explore, and it costs nothing to get inside. This is one instance where a library has become not only a spot where the community gathers, but visitors put it on their list of sights to see as well. There are countless restaurants and cafes in San Miguel. Part of the fun is finding your own place to stop. I stopped into La Sacristia for a morning drink. The cafe was just what you look for in such a place. An outside seating area was cool and comfortable. I was not fortunate enough to land a spot there, but the interior had its own appeal. I was able to watch as the staff prepared drinks and food for all those who showed up on this day. Then, I got to enjoy the cappuccino that had been so carefully crafted in front of me. I always feel bad messing with the coffee art, but I suppose it is designed to be temporary. For lunch one day, I dropped into Once Once, a small space that turned out to be extremely big on flavor. The dish I chose was mole eggs, and it was staggering how good that plate of food tasted. It consisted of fried eggs, black beans, tortillas, and fried plantains. The mole sauce that covered it all was earthy with a hint of sweetness, a perfect accompaniment to the ingredients below.
Sometimes spontaneity works. I didn't ask for suggestions, I didn't consult Google reviews, but I just had probably the best meal that I've had in Mexico. Remember the name, Once Once, in the Guadalupe neighborhood.
Knowing it would be almost impossible to match the mole eggs from the day before, I stopped into a restaurant called El Archangel. It was totally outside of the main tourist district.
There are scores of high-end restaurants in San Miguel de Allende. Lots of rooftop places too, serving food and drink. That's not exactly for me. I prefer something small, simple, hopefully family run. Places like this.
Eggs once again featured prominently in my choice from the menu. When the dish arrived, I was overwhelmed.
Wow, chilaquiles con huevos.
It tasted just as good as it looked and was a solid follow-up to what I'd had the day before. I can't say it was as good, but it was well above average and maybe on the way to excellent. I will dream about those mole eggs. My home for the 2 nights in San Miguel de Allende was the Doña Jose Suite and Apartments. It was a solid choice in a location just a couple hundred meters from the center. The room was fine, but the outside common areas were special, and I only wish I could have enjoyed them more. 2 nights here was $90 total. Only one thing left, and that was to find a place for a beer.
This shoot ended much the way it started. I traveled to a brewery, thought they had a tap room. It was 3 miles round trip. They did not have a tap room. I got back here in downtown and witnessed a glorious sunset. Take a look at this. It was really spectacular. And then I ended up here, and I got an Imperial Stout. All is well.
It was flavorful and turned out to be a great way to wrap up 2 days in the city. The difference in this place was apparent from the moment that I arrived. During my first 15 minutes of walking on the streets, I heard more English being spoken than I encountered during 2 weeks in Querétaro. Expats are a small percentage of the population, but they have had a profound impact on this place. To me, this feels like an Americanized version of a Mexican city. Is that good or bad? I'll let you decide. There are thousands, however, who swear that they've found their utopia. Thanks for watching Old, Alone, and Far From Home. I will see you next time.